So there I was in a prison, but this prison was in Hawaii. Can't complain. Hawaii. Yes, I neglected to tell you I was born and raised in Hawaii. And what's cool about Hawaii is, and this is how I remember it in my opinion, there was no racism. There were no Italian people and Irish people. There were no Polish, German. It wasn't like that. I didn't know people's ethnic backgrounds until I moved to New York. Everybody was just who they were. You know, if your last name was McDonald, you weren't Irish. You were just that person. There was no black and white. No, it was the people who lived in Hawaii and the tourists, and that's it. And I appreciated it growing up this way because I did not have that stereotypical racist attitude, if that makes sense. So it's another thing, and Hawaii is really small. Maybe 1 million people on a rock, and the rock is small, 30 by 40 miles. You could Google it. It's a small island. And don't forget, there's a mountain in the middle. The mountain spreads out, and then you got the ocean. So people live from where the mountain ends to the ocean, which isn't much of land. So it was really crowded, and there was a lot of people. But each town in the county of this island, each town was small, and you knew the people you grew up with. You went from kindergarten through high school. You may even go to college because you're all on the same rock. So you know everybody. So working in this prison, some of the inmates you're bound to know. And it's just really funny because the officers who watch the inmates might be related, and there's nothing you can do. You can't move them somewhere else. Well, now you can because they send inmates to the mainland. But back then, if you were related, oh well. So that was kind of nice about it, that it was small, no big deal. Back then there weren't all these gangs. You didn't see fighting, and actually today I didn't see it. Not today, but in this time I don't see it as much either. So that was kind of nice. So here I am in this prison. It's a maximum security prison, all men. And every day was different. You never know what's going to happen. And like I said, you're always watching your back. But because it's my first time in a prison, I'm hypersensitive. And when you work in a prison, you either like your job or you don't. Because if you don't like being there and you can't handle it, you're going to get hurt. So either you like your job and you know how to deal with it and you're going to go far, or you don't and it's not for you. I liked my job. I had a good time. I always strived to learn more things within my scope. I wasn't a registered nurse at the time. I was just a medical assistant, so I did what I could. I gobbled up all the training I could. I absorbed all the information I could. Anything that would make me go farther, get smarter, knowledge. And for the most part, it was a safe environment. It was not a bad job. The inmates respected you. And I say you as a person. If you don't bother them and you don't harass them and you respect them as human and not judge, because that's not our job. They've already been judged. They will respect you. You don't have to treat them all nice and, oh, are you okay? And how are you? You don't have to do that. But you do have to be fair, firm, and consistent through your whole career. If you say no to one, you say no to all. You can't do favors. You can't have pets. You can't do it. It's a recipe for disaster. So within the medical unit where I was working, they have what you call porters or trustees, and these are inmates who are not sex offenders, that are not violent felons like murderers, anything like that, that work within the medical unit. And they can't be these things because there's women there, so they don't want sex offenders or violent offenders. So they have these porters, and they just work alongside you, empty your garbage, but you're always watching your back, no matter what. You never turn your back. It's like the ocean. You never turn your back on the ocean. You never turn your back on an inmate. Same principle. So they clean your room, your garbage, and do other duties around the medical unit. But other than that, I would have contact with the inmates by doing blood pressures, vitals, things like that. We had one inmate that was in a coma due to a fight, and he was in a sort of vegetative state, couldn't really understand you that we know. Who knows what he could understand. He needed caring for, so I took care of him. There were other inmates that were in the infirmary, recovering from a procedure, broken leg, something that would not allow them to be in general population, the flu, whatever. So I'd help the nurses with these inmates. So whatever a nurse's aide would do, that's kind of what I did. And there was one incident where I was handing an inmate a pill in his little cup, and the nurse was with me, and I put it down on the there's a metal door with a glass window, and then a flap that opens like a little gate, and you can hand in food, a newspaper, whatever. So this little gate folds down. I put the medication there. Within a second, the inmate grabbed my arm, pulled it in, yanked it to my shoulder, and just slammed it. Now, this inmate had mental health problems. He wasn't all there. So it wasn't like some violent inmate who wanted to hurt me. It wasn't like that. It was not forgivable, but understandable. And he was scared. I was new. He didn't know who I was. And it turned into a situation. And like I said, he pulled my arm. I got hurt. A lot of things could have been done differently to avoid the situation, but it happened. For me, it was like riding a bike. I got hurt. I did not quit. I kept going. Got back on my bike. I was good. Had to learn to adapt to people's situation, their mental health, their attitudes, their behaviors. And also, I had to learn about safety, my safety, what was right, what was wrong, and not in a moral sense, but what is right to do so I don't get hurt sense. Instead of putting the cup on and leave, like my hand there, I could have went to the side of it and did it sideways, so there was no way he could yank my arm in. You learn. Unfortunately, it's like getting burnt on the stove. You put your hand, you get burnt, you never do it again. So I had to learn. And that was the only time in Hawaii that I got hurt in a prison. And I was there a few years. There was another inmate, we'll call him James Smith. And going further on into my stories, the names will be changed to protect people, and not the innocent, because these are convicted people. Just one, I don't have permission, not that I need it, but I'll just change the name. So James Smith was another porter, and he had a little bit of mental health issues, but not like that other inmate. He was more on the spectrum and talked to himself a lot, didn't like loud noises, but he was very good at his job, very good at cleaning. He'd say hello. He was very pleasant. It was just a hard worker. And I was married at the time. And my husband and I found out we were going to have a baby. So this was about the spring of 91. And I was still working in the prison. And I just started showing my little baby bump. And James Smith started noticing too. And the good mornings turned into, good morning, how's the baby? Good morning, are you feeling sick? Good morning, have you felt the baby move? It was not inappropriate, but not appropriate. And I started getting uncomfortable. So one day I was working and James Smith came into the room to collect the garbage. Of course, my back was to the back of the room. My front was facing the door. No escape, but no, if you put your back to the door, you can't see what's coming in, but you could get out. If you put your back against the wall, you could see who's coming in, but you can't get. So it was almost a no-win situation. But I was sitting at a desk charting, and he stepped into the room to empty the garbage. And the words that came out of his mouth stopped me dead in my tracks. And it changed how I felt about inmates working in prison and my future with the Department of Corrections. So, in part 3, I will tell you what he said. To be continued. Don't forget to like and subscribe and set your notifications so that when the new stories become available, you will be ready for them. All right. This is going to be a long series. We're talking 25 to life, and we're only in the 1990s. And today it's 2021. So hold on to your hats. It's going to be a long ride.